right, we will get started. It's right around 1:01. Welcome to our Child Life webinar series. Today, I am so excited to have Debbie Spencer share with you some insight in becoming a successful child life intern. I know that's a stepping stone in becoming a child life specialist. So Debbie, I'm going to turn it to you. I know your background is pretty extensive, so maybe you could share with our students kind of your role, what made you decide to become a child life specialist, and then we could jump into your amazing talk.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. I love talking to students. I know that it can be very confusing getting into this field. And so I am grateful for this opportunity to get in front of you today and talk. So a little bit about my story. I'm much older than all of you. I got into the field. I've been a certified child life specialist now for 15 years, and I've been at one hospital my whole career. I went to school at Samford University in Birmingham, Alabama. I learned about child life when I was in high school. I was lucky, found out about it early on, and knew that that was what I wanted to do. So I did my internship at Wolfson Children's Hospital in Jacksonville, Florida, and started working at what was then Florida Hospital a week after I finished, and have been here ever since. It's now Advent Health for Children. I started in general pediatric unit and shared a unit with 3 specialists. And then I moved into hematology, oncology, and bone marrow transplant and was there for 10 years. And I loved it, loved every minute of that population. And working with them and being with them along those journeys. Then I had my own child, and things change when you're a mom. It doesn't make you a better or worse child life specialist, just makes things different. And so I decided I wanted to change from my unit, and so I went into a cardiovascular intensive care unit. At the same time, I was also our clinical coordinator. I've been and I was overseeing our internship program as well. I am now our manager, and I still oversee our internship program. So I've been internship coordinator for about 11 years now. And so I have seen a lot of students and helped a lot of students, and I've seen the changes in our field over the last decade. And I've definitely noticed in the last few years some of the challenges that students are facing. I recently was a part of the work group through ACLP that helped design the new application, the internship readiness application. And that was a long process. Lots of brain power went into that, and really trying to think of all the stakeholders and how we could reduce some of the burden. I'll talk a little bit more about that because I know it's so new, and a lot of people have questions around it, but that's later on in my presentation. So that's a little bit about me. So Advent Health for Children, in case you're wondering, we're a team of about 20 child life specialists. We are our own campus, but we're not a freestanding children's hospital. We still have, we share a campus with adult hospital, and it's a very large hospital. The children's hospital has around 200 beds with about 100-bed NICU. So we are right here in Orlando in Mickey Mouse land. And it's been a real treat to work here for so long.
Awesome.
I'm going to...
For our students, as Debbie mentioned, she is the internship coordinator, so she is a great person to ask any questions you guys may have about internship. Feel free to put it in the chat, and at the end, we will be sure to answer any questions. So
Yes, I've got plenty of time. I've left time for questions, so I want your questions. Please do not, there's no silly question. And I can't wait to hear from you all. So I'm going to start off with just an overview so we're all on the same page, making sure everybody that's joined today knows what we need to become a certified child life specialist, and then add in some information you may not be aware of. So obviously, if you're in this course, you're in the part of either getting your degree or getting those 10 required courses. And I've got a lot of links in this presentation, and I will share it so that way you guys have access to it, so you can click on all the links on your own. But once you complete your degree and those 10 required courses, then of course you need an internship, and it must be 600 hours, a minimum of 600 hours under the supervision of a CCLS who has 4,000 hours of paid experience. Part of it must be completed in a hospital. You can complete your internship at 2 different or multiple sites, but one of those sites has to be a hospital. And this is where it gets a little tricky because every internship site governs and designs their own program. And that includes the qualifications that are needed to qualify for eligibility for their internship. So one program may require the new internship readiness application. Others may use their own. There's the only ones that have to use certain things and have the same guidelines are going to be internship sites that are accredited. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second, but understanding that every hospital or every internship site may have different requirements is where it can become a little overwhelming as a student to really navigate that and understand what does this hospital need versus what does this hospital need? Does this one need reference letters? Does this one need verification hours? So being organized in this process is so important. You cannot be too organized. And hopefully more and more hospitals will start using this new readiness application. And that will reduce the amount of paperwork and extra things that are needed. So, and I'll go into more of that, like I said, in a little bit. An internship does not have to be an accredited internship for certification. So in order to become a certified child life specialist, you do not have to do your internship at an accredited internship site. Some people think that that is a thing and you will still be able to get certification if you are at a program that is not accredited. What it means to be an accredited program is that this program has applied and has been reviewed by the ACLP to meet certain program standards that they have designed. It guarantees that you as a student, your experience will meet all the requirements for certification eligibility. So they're going to cover all the modules, they're going to cover all of the competencies that you will need in order to have the knowledge and readiness you need to become to start a job. That does not mean that those sites that are not accredited will not provide that experience. There's a lot of reasons that a site may not be accredited. For instance, my program, we're not accredited for a couple reasons. Ours is, for right now, an accredited internship has to design their rotations a certain way. We offer 4 rotations, which gives interns a variety of experiences. And with the accredited program, you can only have 2. So as a personal thing right now, we're waiting to see if maybe ACLP can tweak that a little bit. But other programs may not have the funding to be able to provide or to pay for the application and the process to become accredited. We all know child life programs have budgets are always an issue. So being able to, I think it's $1,500 to apply, that money might need to go towards supplies or towards other programming. So they may not have the money. So what I'm trying to say is that just because an internship site is not accredited does not mean that you won't get a great experience and that you will not be prepared for a job. The accreditation just means that those that are accredited have gone through an extra level of review. Most internships are unpaid, but there are a few programs that do offer paid internships or scholarships. ACLP also has a diversity scholarship that you can apply for if you meet the criteria. I believe it's $5,000 over the semester that can go towards living expenses and all the fees that go with having to maybe relocate or not work while you're completing your internship. So I just wanted to mention that there are more and more programs that are trying to find ways to help reduce the cost for students. So after you have done all of that, then you can sit for your certification exam. Most places that I've found do not require certification to be hired. Many places will give you a year after you have hired to get that certification. So you can be applying for jobs during your internship. You don't have to wait until you're done. You don't have to wait until you're certified. Everyone is coming to their career at a different point. Some must work as soon as possible. Others are able to take time and explore, take some time off after internship and really think about where they want to go. Others, because life dictates other things, you might have to jump right into the field. So just wanting people to know you don't have to wait until you are certified in order to get a job. So those are kind of the nuts and bolts to get there. So the current state of the child life profession and its impact on students. Can't talk about this without talking about the reality of the situation we're in. And I don't mean this to be a downer. I just like to really make sure everybody knows what they're walking into. So there are a lot of job positions that are open. If you follow any type of social media, every day I feel like there's another child life job opening across the country. That's great. That's wonderful. If you are looking for a change, if you are certified and you are, wanting to find a job, it is making things challenging for students. There's a bit of a bottleneck. Couple reasons that there's job openings. Some child life specialists have left the profession. They may need to find a higher paying job. They may have left to care for their children at home. The pandemic also negatively impacted healthcare in general, but also child life programs, including cutting positions. So maybe they didn't choose to leave the profession, but that choice was made for them. So those positions were cut. Burnout is also a really big problem right now. Many programs are being asked to do more with less people. Children's hospitals across the country are at capacity. We are very, very busy. It's a wonderful job, but you have to know the reality of getting into this, and you have to be able to take care of yourself. So burnout is very real. And so with all of those open job positions, it's negatively impacting internship opportunities. Some hospitals are not allowing students or volunteers still, even after many of the COVID precautions and restrictions have been lifted. They may not be able to take on students. Some programs don't have the staff to support internship programs for the reasons I've already listed above, but also they may have very new child life specialists who don't have those 4,000 hours of paid experience yet to be able to take on a student. So while they may be fully staffed, they may not have the experience necessary to be able to take on a student. And also some programs have limited the numbers of students they've been able to take. So maybe in the past they took 5, and now they're only able to take 2 because of the decrease in staffing, just the workload, things like that. So what are we doing to help with that? Well, ACLP is working to increase access to the profession. And they're doing that a couple different ways. They're looking at different strategies on how internships are offered and when they are, and also trying to streamline the internship application process and removing some of the barriers that can prevent people from even coming into the field. Because we know if we don't have new people coming in, you're not going to have people to do the job. So we want to make sure we're having opportunities to train new child life specialists and bring them into the field. So some programs are pausing taking students to align with ACLP's changes. So they're really kind of just like, let's see what ACLP does before we step into the next taking on another student. So there may be a pause. It may not be that their program's done, but so you want to make sure you're always checking with the hospitals you're interested in applying to see if they're able to offer that semester that you're interested in. We know that there's a backlog of qualified applicants ready for internship, but not always enough programs to place them all. Competition for internship positions is tough. I've never seen it this competitive, and everyone is wonderful. For example, we get around 60 to 70 applications for 1 or maybe 2 positions at our hospital per semester. So it's a lot. And again, I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from coming into our field. I just really like to paint a realistic picture so people know what it could be. It's not a nursing job. It's not a teaching job. You do need to understand that it could take a little while to get an internship. And then also you may have to relocate. It's very common to have to move for your internship or for a job. All right. So how can you be a qualified standout candidate? So you want to have a variety of experiences, paid or unpaid, both count. There's a rumor that's gone around that paid experiences do not count. That is not true. If you were a preschool worker, if you have experience at maybe a domestic violence shelter where you worked, we want that experience to be highlighted, showcased, and for you to feel that it matters, because it does. You want to have healthcare and non-healthcare settings. Practicum, hot topic right now. So there used to be, so first of all, practicum has never been required for certification, but became a bit of a de facto requirement for internships. Many places said you had to have a practicum in order to qualify for an internship with them. ACLP is trying to get rid of that requirement, or that de facto one, so that it makes it less another barrier to take out of the way for students. So recently they just came out and said, we do not endorse practicums. They took down their guidelines, and they put up these pre-internship experience modules. So that way you can, as a learner or as a site, you could take these guidelines and say, let's apply this to the experience that we can have. Let's talk about theory and development. Let's talk about the observations that we're seeing. Let's talk about play through the lens of a child life specialist. So it's a guide, and it's a way to get in additional learnings from your experiences, and it can be applied in a variety of settings, not just a traditional hospital practicum. I do still think hospital experience is one of the most important types of experience you can have. It prepares you for the environment, the sights, the smells, the sounds, the physical work that it takes to do this job, and the emotional side that comes with it, and having to go from one room where you were playing and having a great time, and then going into the next room and seeing a child be very upset for the IV that they're about to get. And how do I, as a human, manage that and go home at the end of the day and feel good about the work I did? So it gives you a taste of that. So most places are, and it's still a requirement through ACLP to have experience in a healthcare setting, but there's no longer a minimum amount of hours that is on the application. So it's totally up to the applicant and for you to find those ways to connect your experiences to the different components of the application, and to prepare yourself for your internship. You really want to have direct support or interaction with children, supporting their psychosocial needs. So that's a broad thing that you can do. So that can be in a dentist office, that can be in a primary care physician's office, it could be in a hospice center. There's lots of different healthcare experiences, and those are specifically healthcare, that you can get that may not be in a children's hospital because you don't have access to that right now. So get creative with thinking, where do children seek healthcare? And could I have a role in that, in decreasing their stress, in promoting coping, in creating a fun environment, whatever it might be. And then the other side, the non-healthcare experience, you want to see, you need, as a child life specialist, we are developmental experts. So we need to know what typical development looks like across the spectrum. So from infants to teenagers. So what should a 5-year-old physically be typically, when we're talking about a typically developing child, what do they typically do? Are they walking, running, jumping? What's their verbal skills? What are their cognitive abilities? So the understanding of child development in a typically developing child is so important, because that's where you're going to make your adjustments as a child life specialist and say, oh, this child's 10, but they're really cognitively maybe at a 6-year-old level. So I'm going to change my intervention to meet them where they are developmentally. So that's why it's very important to know and to have those non-healthcare experiences too. Coursework. Most sites want it completed by the start of your internship, and some by the application submission. So every site's going to be different on that. Check the requirements. ACLP is pushing towards by the start of the internship, not by application submission, because we know that that does not align with students' coursework, and to have everything done by the time they're applying will delay them even longer. So you want to make sure you have those 10 required courses. And so you also, now we've come out with these knowledge, skills, and abilities, or KSAs, through ACLP. So they are really important that as a candidate, you are familiar with these. They are part of the application, and they are also things for you to know, okay, do I have this knowledge? Do I have this awareness? Do I have this skill developed yet? Because we've spent a lot of time outlining, what does a day one intern look like? What are the expectations for someone walking through the door on their first day of their internship that they are able to speak to, that they are knowledgeable about, and they're able to do? So that's what that one pager, the KSAs, can really help you know if you're ready for this next step, or if you still need more time to study, to get experience, and to think through your next steps. So we're hopeful that it will, in addition to helping internship sites be able to see who's ready, it will help students and applicants know I am ready and this is how I know. I am able to tie this KSA to this experience and this piece of knowledge that I have. So really it goes both ways, kind of a self-check for yourself to say this is what is expected and this is what I'm able to do. All right, moving on. So the new application, what have we done? What are the goals? So we wanted to increase efficiency for all stakeholders. We wanted to take less time for students that are applying. It should not be as much of a burden as it became. For those that are reviewing applications, it was taking up to 30 to 45 minutes to review an application. And as a practicing child life specialist who has patients to see, that can be a reason that a program doesn't offer internships, because of the burden it is just to select a student. So we wanted to reduce that, and as someone who we've used this application and it's drastically reduced it and still given us quality answers and quality candidates. So we're looking at all sides here. We wanted to absolutely reduce bias within the application. We recognize that many of the components that had been asked in the past introduced bias, intentional or unintentional, and it was not fair. So even something like location, someone who's been in the field for a while, I tend to know, I know reputations of programs, and whether I wanted to or not, knowing where a student did their practicum could positively or negatively impact my opinion of their preparation. So whether I thought about it or not, it was doing that. So we wanted to remove all possibility of anything we could do to reduce that intentional or unintentional bias. And we wanted to improve accessibility. So it's now fully digital. You don't have to pay to mail it anymore. It's all email. There's no paper to print. It's much easier. As someone who's reviewing it, I'm not wasting all my time opening envelopes and all of that. So what did we take out? The minimum number of experience hours. It used to be, I think, 100 or 150. We asked the question, where did that number come from? Why do we require that? Because is that research-based, saying that after 100 hours, you deem that you have good experience in something? So we said, we're getting rid of that because that can be a barrier. Some students don't have access or the ability to get 150, and it wasn't even just 150. People were coming with 3,000 hours of experience, and that was swaying potentially some of the applications. We cut out location identifiers. We don't want people to be excluded or included for, like I said, anything of where they've done their experience or maybe where they live, anything like that. We took out the cover letter, took out a resume, because a lot of the identifiers and different bias can be on the resume. We took out the need for official transcripts. Unofficial are there, so that way it doesn't cost money to get those transcripts. Course in progress forms. It's just a burden. It's on there. It's now for the student to attest to whether that it's completed or it's in progress, or if it'll be completed during the internship. So, and we can see that on the transcripts as well. So there's a way to see it. But tired of, academic professionals don't need to have to sit there and sign off on course forms either. References. This was a hot topic because there's a lot of information you can gain from a reference, but does it introduce bias? Does it introduce another voice that may positively or negatively impact a student? So at the application point, we have removed references. Now, that's not to say that if you make it onto an interview, a site may not request references at that point. That's also to reduce the burden that professionals, whether in academia or at the clinical side, are having to write so many letters. And hopefully it increases the quality of those letters, because we know that if you're writing 100 letters, or even if you're writing 20 letters, you're doing they start to look the same after a while. And that takes a lot of time for a lot of different people. So we wanted to reduce that. and let the applicant's voice be the loudest one, be the only one. So it's up to the applicant to really provide all of the information needed to say whether or not they're ready or not. We took out GPA because we know that GPA is not an indicator of a student's success, and experience verification forms. We're going to treat applicants like adults and professionals and say that if they say they did it, they say they did it. Jobs don't ask for experience verification forms. So why do we have people running around trying to get all these forms signed? We rewrote the essay questions, and it's now really a whole opportunity for the applicant to demonstrate their readiness for an internship, not for the reviewer to say they're ready, but for an applicant to really be able to speak to why they feel they are. And then, like I said, applications are now all electronic. So no more mailing, no more wondering, did it make it there? Did it get lost in the mail? Did it get ruined by rain? All of the things that we've had to see. No more overnighting it and spending $30 on an application to overnight an application. So hopefully all of these changes are positive and will positively impact the process for everybody involved. I've included a slide with all of the resources that are available to everyone for the readiness application. There's videos, there's documents, there's why did we remove things, there's tips. So that's all available on the ACLP's website. I just included these links here. And like I said, you guys will have access to this PowerPoint. I think it's important for you to know what the resources are available so that you're not trying to navigate this on your own. Okay, so what makes a candidate stand out? On my screen, okay, I can see it all now. So you want to submit a complete and thorough application. Check, check, and recheck. Do not leave any pieces out. Do not assume that you have done a good job proofreading it. Have someone else read your essays. Make sure everything is there. When you're emailing in things, make sure that all of the components are there, your transcripts, your eligibility assessment, and your application. Professionalism. First impressions matter. So when you call a hospital, when you email them, make sure you're addressing them. Make sure you're putting your best foot forward and making a good impression. When you talk on the phone, have a smile on your face. Sound excited to speak to someone. Make sure you have your questions gathered. Especially if you're calling a hospital and talking to somebody who might be in the middle of patient care, let them know, I need about do you have 5 minutes? If not, can I call you back another time? So really think about how are you portraying yourself in these first impressions. As you submit emails, make sure you're using good grammar and not just talking to your friends and that kind of lingo, because it can come across that's kind of I'm not your friend. This is a position you're applying for. So you want to make sure you have that, and just keep that in mind. As you're writing and talking about your answers, you want to have a direct connection of the experiences and learnings to your essay questions on the application. So really think through, what are those KSAs asking, and how can I pull from my experiences specific examples of how I grew this KSA or how it applied to my experience, really being able to talk about them. You want to show a genuine interest in the program that you're applying to. This can be challenging when you don't have an opportunity to submit a cover letter or really talk to a program. But if you get to an interview, or if you want to put something at the end of the application, there's a free text box. You could put something there. That would then, you would have to do different applications for every site, unfortunately. So maybe it's just in the email that you're sending of, I am so excited to apply for your internship program. I've been impressed with this or this. Just really showing that this isn't that you are interested in this program and they should take a chance on you. Because when you have 60 to 70 applicants, we're also looking for someone who's going to choose us. It's a lot of work that goes into selecting an applicant. And so we want to really put our time and effort into students who are serious about applying to us. So with that said, do not apply to a program that you can't go to. If it is impossible for you to get to Hawaii and live there for 4 months, do not apply to the Hawaii internship in the hospital there, because you're wasting a lot of time. You're wasting your time, you're wasting their time. If geographically you are constrained to a certain area for whatever reason, don't apply to other programs that you cannot go to. So think about your finances, think about what's realistic for you. Save yourself and the programs the time of going through all these applications by really narrowing down to who you would accept an offer from. You want to have an engaging and dynamic interview. I have a few more tips for interview coming up, but you want to practice. Pretend that you are on an interview, have someone ask you questions. There's lots of resources for potential interview questions out there, and there's mentors, there's all kinds of things. An interview, and we know it's nerve-wracking, we know everybody gets nervous, but you have a chance to practice and prepare for that. So please do that. It will only help you. You want to have a humble confidence. You don't want to come off egotistical, but you also don't want to come off that you don't know what you're doing. So being able to speak with confidence, not arrogance, but a gentle humility about the things you know. So don't be afraid to speak to what you do know, and also be able to admit, I don't have experience with that yet. I'm excited to learn about that, but I haven't personally been able to participate in something like that. Okay, you're honest, genuine, but shows that you are interested in learning and growing. You want to have genuine answers that communicate your passion, interest, and knowledge. So we do not want a robot. We are not looking for somebody who can read me every aspect of Erickson's theory. I don't want to know that. I want to know what it means to you and how you have understood it and connected it to your experiences. So being able to speak about that, that's something you can practice talking about. When you're with your niece or nephew or cousins and you're watching their development, see if you can pick up on different stages of development or theories, and then be able to speak to it and talk about it in a conversational manner. That's really what we want to see. We don't want, bullet points being spoken to us, because anybody can remember and memorize things, but being able to actually talk about it and apply it is very different. Okay, so what are some different areas and places to get experience? So we talked about a little bit of this already, but pediatric healthcare. You want to make sure it's pediatric because that's what mainly our field is supporting, is children. There are, we'll all support children, but we may work in an adult setting supporting the children of adult patients. But hospital is most common and highly suggested. You really, really, really need to have some type of experience in a hospital. Just so you don't have that shock walking into your internship of, I've never been in a hospital setting other than maybe visiting someone. It's a different environment, and you need to know that you can handle it. You need to know that you can see blood and not pass out, or that you're not a sympathetic vomiter, whatever it might be. Being able to have that experience and feeling good in that environment will also boost your confidence and be able to say, no, actually, it feels really good for me to be in this environment. I'm not as intimidated as I thought I might be, or we're not expecting everybody to be super comfortable, but to know that you can handle it and that it is healthy for you. Other places you can go: clinics, dentist, hospice, really any healthcare environment that's supporting children is a great place to get some experience. Non-healthcare camps, both medical and non-medical. So it could be sports camps. It could be something we have here in Orlando, or around Orlando, is Camp Boggy Creek. So it's a medical camp, and it has the children with everything from sickle cell to cancer to spina bifida. They're all over the country. Great way to get to know patient or children beyond their diagnosis and see how it impacts them. And just, they're the happiest place on earth. Highly recommend it. Done camp many times. And if you just need a positive happy in your life, go be a camp counselor. Great place. Something else we are seeing a lot more in the hospital, and maybe not more in the hospital, but people are relying on our expertise a lot more, is for our patients who have sensory sensitivities, special needs, autism, they're neurodivergent, just having something that, having different needs than our typical general population. And so having experience with that can be very helpful. And it can help you stand out as well. Volunteering at a grief and loss center. So there's lots of grief groups. There's virtual grief groups. So if you don't have one in your area, look into Wonders and Worries. There's a treehouse one. I can't think of the name right now. But there are options online if you can't, like I said, physically go. Highly recommend being in person if you can, but know that that's not a reality for everyone. Development centers, so child development centers. A lot of them are going to be your 0 to 5-year-olds, giving you great experience, learning all the different milestones they're experiencing during that time, and understanding how what their brains are doing and how they're adapting to the world. Great place to start putting those theories into practice and really observing children in their play and understanding the theories around play and language development, all of those things. Great experience there. Wish granting agencies. This gives you a real look into how illness can affect the whole family, because you're not just working with the child with the illness, you're working with the siblings, the parents, and you're getting a little peek into their lives. You get to meet them one-on-one, spend time with them, really find out what's important to them. I did a presentation at Make-A-Wish, their national conference recently, and they're in the homes as a wish granter, and they're really getting to know these kids in a special way. So that's another great place to just kind of get a different perspective of kids with illnesses and seeing how it affects them in so many different ways. Schools, if you've been a teacher, if you're a para, if you are a sub, any of that, great experience interacting with children. And really, anything that has you working directly with children, supporting their psychosocial needs, is excellent experience. So there's so many different things that people like, does this count? Does this count? It does, as long as it's working with children. So one of the things the new application has done is gotten rid of the language around healthcare, non-healthcare, and stressful, or something along those lines. It's now just healthcare and non-healthcare experience that we're looking for. Stressful is way too confusing. Nobody knows what that means. Does it mean the child needs to be stressed out or the environment is stressful? I don't know. So it is now clearly defined healthcare, non-healthcare. So it's going to fall into one of those buckets. And those are the only two types of experience the new application asks for, and for you to define it as. So hopefully that is a little bit helpful as well. Okay, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but we have the new pre-internship experience models. It's a way to enhance and provide deeper learning experiences in the healthcare and community setting. So if you don't have access to a healthcare setting, but you're with children in a development center or something like that, you can use these pre-internship modules and apply that to your learning there. It can be self-led. You can, everything you need is within these modules, and it's all on childlife.org or ACLP's website. You can also give it to your supervisor and say, it would be really helpful if we could tie this into my experience, no matter where you are. And the main topics it covers are professional development, observation, theory and practice, diversity, equity and inclusion, and the power of play. So some really big and very important topics that are covered in these modules. So they're free to use. Highly encourage you to go ahead and look at them and see how you might be able to use them in some of your experiences that you have going on right now. All right, I am going much faster through this than I expected, but here we are at tips for interviews. First off, smile and breathe. Just take a deep breath. We know you're nervous. We know you want to do well, and we want you to do well. So make sure you are in a good headspace as much as you can. Make sure you take time before the interview to ground yourself, that you're not rushing into it or running from someplace else. It'll be noticed, and you will not be able to do the best and your best job. So take a deep breath, smile, be happy that you're talking to these people. Try not to look as scared as you may feel. You want to listen and answer the question that was asked, not what you think they want you to say. So often we'll ask a question and students will include so much more in the answer. It's not a test. It's not a test for you to share everything you know about a topic. We also want to know that you're active listeners, because when you're with patients, you should be active listening. And if you are got so much tunnel vision on, I need to say what they think I should say, how are you going to be with patients? So we want to know that you're in the moment, that you're listening to what is being said, and you're providing the information that has been requested. You want to find a quiet place with a neutral background or use a virtual background. If you've got people coming in and out, just block it, use a virtual background. Try and make sure it's like you have good either headphones in or that the background noise is muted. You want to dress professionally, even if you don't think we can see that, it just changes your whole body when you have a full outfit on. I'm not talking pajama pants and a cute top that we all got used to during the pandemic. Put on the shoes, put on the whole thing like you're going to an interview. It just puts you in a whole different mindset. Do not have full notes written out. You will default to reading them. And we know when you're reading answers. And like I said, we don't want perfection. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for genuine answers that show that you know the information, that you can recall it and you can apply it. And if you have all these notes around, we can see your eyes and we know when you go from a genuine answer and kind of speaking from your heart to reading rote things. So I just say, don't put the notes out, practice. And if you need a minute to gather your thoughts and think through something, just say, what, can I have a second to think about that? If your mind goes blank, we're going to give you grace. So I think that would be one of the biggest things that I would say, don't have all the answers written out in front of you, because naturally you're going to look at them. Practice. Find a friend, find a buddy, find a parent, caregiver, wherever, anybody that'll listen to you, or do it by yourself. I tried to practice this presentation before by myself, just to talk through my slides, to get things out in the open and out of my head so that I can feel a little bit more articulate as I am going through this. So practice, practice, practice. Utilize your campus resources if you have access to that, whether it's a career development center, they will absolutely do interview practice. If you are applying to a place with a resume that requires a resume, get someone else to look over it, proofread it, have your career development center look over it with you. You don't have to do this alone. There's a lot of resources out there. Always have thoughtful questions prepared to ask at the end for an interview. There's nothing more kind of off-putting than when it comes to the end of an interview and say, so do you have any questions for us? And no, I'm good. To me, that says you're not really interested in our program and you may not actually want to come here, or there could be a lot of reasons you don't have questions, but always have something prepared. And it can be, what's your favorite part of child life? It doesn't have to be anything specific. Maybe all the questions about the program have been answered for you as far as rotations and any logistical questions about their internship. But being able to ask about the team, about the culture, about the climate there, and I don't mean the weather, but what does it feel like to do child life in this hospital? And how do you support interns? Really think of some thoughtful questions to be able to ask the team. 3 to 4 questions, plenty. You don't need to have a list of 10, but make sure you have something. Know your story and your why. Can guarantee you at some point in your interview process, you're going to be asked to tell us how you learned about child life, why you are pursuing this career, what about the field interests you, something along those lines. Make sure you can speak to it. And it doesn't have to be the most riveting story, but what can come out of it is your passion and your commitment and your desire to do this work, and the knowing that this is what I'm meant to do. This is something that I have been working for a really long time. I've hit some barriers, I've had some roadblocks, but it's only made me more and more passionate about being able to do this work. Review your development theories and common risk factors or stressors of hospitalized children. You will be asked that, and it may be Erickson, it may be Piaget, it may be pick your own theorist, or tell us about this. Every hospital is going to be different in what they're expecting students to come with as far as knowledge. and you could just come as prepared as you can. Be able to speak articulately about your experiences and how they impacted you or prepared you for an internship or the child life field in general. So think about, everything you've done, look back on your experiences and have specific examples that you could recall, whether it was a really challenging situation that you weren't sure what to do. It was maybe a conflict with a peer. Think about typical interview questions and be able to pull from those experiences that have really prepared you for child life and connect it to the questions that they're answering. So don't just come into it, rolling out of bed and not really have done your homework and as far as thinking back through your application or all of the work you've done. Highlight the things you've done because we only get to see up to 6 on the application now. So maybe there's 10 to 12 things you've done that you didn't even get to talk about on your application. Bring that into the interview. I didn't get to mention this in my application, but this was a really pivotal experience for me, and I'd love to share this with you. Or, however you can tie it in. Be thorough but concise. Really know when you're starting to go off track and pull it back. Again, it's not the time to share everything you know about every single topic. Keep it to the point, but don't cut yourself short either. You don't want to just kind of not really answer the question or be very, very surface level. So there's a balance, and the more you practice, the more experience you get with doing it, the easier it is. So that's my presentation. And now I would love to see some of your questions. I'm going to pull up the Q&A.
One question, and great response so far, Debbie. Our students are really seeming to like this. We had a question from Tessa. For non-healthcare experiences, can being a teacher count, or would it have to be deemed volunteer work? Great question.
No, absolutely. Great question. Teachers are beloved and we love teachers. And yes, please count that experience. That would be your non-healthcare experience. And it does not have to be volunteer work. It can absolutely be paid.
I think some of the other questions, questions we've gotten in the past from our students is, because UCSB is an unaffiliated program, how does that impact their ability to get an internship? Because internship is very competitive, like you mentioned. Like, you guys only have 1 to 2 spots for 60 to 70 applications. One of our instructors, she's at UC San Francisco, and she says last time they got 100 applications for 1 spot. So how can we help our students coming from an unaffiliated program really stand out?
That's a great question. And unfortunately, more and more programs are going to require that affiliation. We know there's a few loopholes that you can, take a course at another university and then be eligible for their affiliation. But there are programs out there that take unaffiliated students. We used to be able to, and honestly, I found the unaffiliated students to have, want it more almost, or something. Like, they really stood out. We had a lot of unaffiliated students, and I wish we could continue with that. So you've got to find your loophole. We've created a course at our university where students can apply. If they've been offered an internship through us, they can apply directly and be covered for affiliation through them. So there may be opportunities like that with different hospitals that you're applying to. So, it doesn't hurt to call and ask and say, I see it says you have to be affiliated in order to apply to this program. Do you have any options for those that are unaffiliated to be able to get that affiliation? So that might be a conversation you can have just to see what other opportunities are there. Or is it a hard and fast, nope, you've got to be affiliated.
And just for our students, just to let you guys know, we are working on becoming affiliated with some of the hospitals. So that is in the works. It does take time because, anytime a university and a hospital is working on these contracts, it does take time, but that is something that we are looking into after getting a lot of feedback and talking to our team. So you guys are the first to hear about this, but hopefully we'll have some changes coming in the near future.
That's great news. I know a lot of students have gone through UCSB, and very prepared, great program. And that's been the one thing that they have a hard time with is I need an affiliation.
But I do love that feedback of, calling the different hospitals to see if there is that loophole to then get that affiliated status. Do we have any other questions from our students? This was such a very informative, you packed in a lot of information. I know one of our students said you've eased her anxiety or stress by being able to share so much information about the internship process. I guess we have a question, you. Oh, do you know if hospitals keep track of how many times an individual applies, just in case they don't get it the first time?
So we used to kind of look back and see maybe what a student has done differently since applying a time before. We don't track it in any formal way. Honestly, there's so many people that apply that I honestly feel bad when I've talked to a student and they're like, oh yeah, I applied for your program and I don't recall it. So if anything, we may not remember that you applied. Now, every program is going to be different. There may be other places that track it. I don't see it as necessary, in my opinion. I wish everybody got an internship their first round so they didn't have to reapply. But also being able to speak to it, I don't think it should be seen as a negative that, it's your second or third time applying. We all know in the field that it is hard to get an internship right now. So recognizing and highlighting what you've done, that you sought out feedback, you gained additional experience, you applied the KSAs, whatever you did, highlight that in your interviews or in that extra section at the end of the application to say, this is my second time applying. Since getting feedback, I have done this and this. I think it shows, your willingness to learn, your willingness to grow, and that you really, really want this.
We have a question. Is there any specific tips for a BIPOC, BIPOC, as child life is predominantly white?
Yes, there is so much work being done on this throughout our field, and I will not claim to be the expert on it. One of the reasons that we wanted to really sort of blind the application was so that it definitely reduced any type of bias around that as well. Unfortunately, that might be in there. And so I think it's a strength, especially if you, speak another language or have come from a different culture. You have a whole different experience to pull from. And so I would highlight it if at all possible. Maybe, you don't, I don't know how to eloquently answer this question, if I'm being totally honest. I see it as a strength. I know we need more people of color and greater diversity in our field. It only makes us stronger. So being confident in who you are will go a long way. And I hope that I see many, many people that are not just white females out there.
We have another question of, if we get turned down on our first intern or practicum attempt, should we follow up for suggestions from the hospital, or is that a no-go?
Every time. You may get told no, that they don't do that. But if a hospital or program offers feedback or an opportunity for feedback, always take them up on it. You may just get more information in that conversation or that email that will put you at ease. Maybe they're able to tell you, unfortunately, we had to go with an internal candidate that, like maybe there were things that happened that will help you understand and realize, okay, it wasn't me that they said no to. It was that they had 3 people leave and they could only offer 1 intern a spot, and then maybe they didn't say that in the process. So I always offer it. I have heard from students that that's not the norm, that a lot of places won't provide feedback. I think it's really important for students to know why they weren't offered something or what they could do better to be more prepared. I don't think we're doing anybody any service by just saying no, try again. That doesn't help. So you can always reach out and ask if you can get any feedback. You may be told no, but at least you asked.
Great. And related question is, if you apply and do not get an internship, do they give you feedback on what you should work on?
Like I said, I wish they did. I wish everybody did, but it's going to be a program, individual programs decision to do that. Some unfortunately don't have the greatest communication to even informing students about where they are in the process, or they just won't be, for whatever reason, they don't communicate very well. So you're going to get a whole spectrum of ways hospitals communicate with you, and some will over communicate and many will be right in the middle of the road and communicate just enough, and then others might, you feel, under communicate. So I wish that you would get feedback from everyone, but that is not going to be your experience, unfortunately.
We have a question. Are there opportunities to focus our work with children with special needs? I'm currently training to receive training to be an ABA therapist. I'm wondering if this can transfer over to child life.
That is excellent experience. And we're actually having a training tomorrow from the Autism Society of Greater Orlando, because we are, like I said, are constantly being looked at as experts and in finding interventions and ways that we can keep patients with autism specifically de-escalated, to keep them safe, to keep our staff safe, to keep the experience a positive one for them. And so any experience you can have as an ABA therapist with special needs is going to be beneficial for you, just to have that experience and know what is someone with autism, or, you can't put them in a box because there's such a spectrum of autism, but what are some typical characteristics, or what are some helpful tools to be able to know when working with a child with autism or an adult with autism, because you don't grow out of it. So that's also the area that we're looked at. We are called into the adult hospital when there's a patient with autism or Down syndrome or some type of developmental delay. And unfortunately, nurses don't get that training. And many healthcare workers get very intimidated or unsure of what to do with a person who has a developmental delay. So we can be that expert, and we can step in and we can say, actually, this could be helpful for them. Or, oh, they seem to be sensory seeking. I have this weighted mat, or I have something that vibrates, or here's a fidget toy. Or, when they're flapping their hands, that is their stim, and they need to be able to complete that stim before moving on to the next task, whatever it is. So all of that information and the experience that you're getting as an ABA therapist is excellent. So yes, it will definitely apply to a child life specialist role.
And for our students, just to let you guys know, we also have the ABA program, and through our ABA program, we offer a lot of different courses. We have a specific course on how to support individuals with autism, so that might be a good relevant course. I'm assuming if they took a course, that would also kind of maybe help with the application.
Absolutely.
And then we also are, one of our instructor, Vanessa Andrew, she is also teaching a course specifically on working with the special needs population. Another question, if you apply and don't receive a practicum or internship at a specific hospital, is it okay to apply there again for the next round, or is that annoying for hospitals?
Apply again. We want to, it may not have worked out that first round or that second round, but, we've had some people apply 4 or 5 times. I don't see it as annoying. I see it as an opportunity to hear from a student as to how they've grown. It makes me very sad if I can't offer them again. And I think that that's a personal journey that you're on there, of like getting that feedback. And if you're not doing anything with the feedback, then that might be why you're not moving on to interviews or you're not getting offers. So you've got to seek the feedback. You got to be open to the feedback, and you've got to do something with the feedback. So no, it's not annoying. Again, we are very aware of the hardship it is to find an internship right now. So it's almost an expectation that we see names again. And for me, it shows that you're really interested in our program. Something that stands out to me is when I'm in an interview and someone says, Debbie, you actually gave me feedback last time, and I really enjoyed our interview or our conversation, and it led me to do this. So it shows that, 1, our connection meant something to you. 2, you did something with the feedback I gave you. So you're teachable, you're coachable, you are take initiative. Those are all things that can come out when you are even just talking about, this is the second time I've applied, and it's only reinforced that I want to be at your hospital. I've done more research. I know, A, B, and C about your program now. It gave me more time to be confident in my skills or get more experience doing this. So definitely not annoying, highly recommend it. I don't see it as a negative.
I think there was a chat, it disappeared, but essentially someone asked if they had experience as a PT, working, at a doctor's hospital as a PT, can that experience count?
I think it depends on the population you're working with. If you're working with children, I think I feel almost tricky. It would be considered healthcare. And I think it all depends on what you're doing within that role. I mean, if you're truly a physical therapist, then there are a lot of things that overlap, and you would be able to pull out a lot of that and tie it into how it does connect to child life. Whether you're working on, being creative in your activities to get children to be more mobile or to utilize their hand when they, didn't want to use it. And so you brought in creative activities. Something like that is what first comes to mind. I would say that probably wouldn't be enough if that was your only healthcare experience, just because PT is very different than child life. It's good healthcare experience, but I would couple it with probably additional, very child-focused, play-based, something along those lines experience.
And do you have a recommendation in terms of how many different experiences they should seek out to be very competitive?
Well, the new application lets you list up to 6. When we were reviewing them this time, sometimes people would only list 4 or, but if they're 4 quality experiences that you can really pull from, then I don't think you need to do more. It's interesting. I've been on a journey too through all of this. And it used to be that, a lot of students that scored well, we scored based on number of hours that somebody had. That's not fair. That's not equitable, and doesn't necessarily make them more prepared. Just because they had access and the ability to volunteer somewhere for 1,000 hours does not mean that they actually pulled a lot from that experience or learned much or even did anything there, or that it's honest. So you never know really where all that comes from. And I say that just because we really want applicants to be able to speak to their experience and tie it to why it was important on their own, not for me to speak for it, and not for someone else a reference to speak for it, but for you to be able to highlight what you learned, how it helped prepare you, and why it was a valuable experience. So I don't want to give a number. Like I said, you can highlight from 1 to 6 on there, and you may choose to highlight 6. You may choose to highlight 4, but I think it all depends on the quality and the type of experience that you had.
Awesome. And so, Debbie, obviously when we talk about internship, it's very, very competitive. But at the end of the day, if you had to do this all over again, would you select this career?
100%. I am still maybe more in love with this career now than I was when I started. As a leader on our team, I don't have a direct unit that I'm responsible for, but when everybody's busy and there's a need, I'll go in and jump in. And I got to cover on a Saturday a couple weeks ago, and it just reminded me so much of how important this job is, how much of an impact we can make, and just how specific our skills are that nobody else has. Nobody else is doing what we do, and it matters so much. It can truly change an experience for a child and their trajectory for the future as they experience healthcare too. So I will forever be a child life specialist. I do not see changing my career. I love it. I value it. I value play and the power of play. I can't say enough about it. I will always be an advocate for our field. And I really, really hope that we continue to have many, many students and aspiring professionals that want to go into this field. I hope we can get pay to go up across the country so that people don't have to choose between staying home with their kids or going into child life or, another career that'll pay more money. So we know that there's constraints. We know that there's a lot of reasons that people may not choose our field, but it will absolutely fill your cup. It will give you purpose and meaning and help you feel that you're truly doing something that matters. Yes, we have second career applicants on our team. We have a former art teacher. We used to have a military, former colonel in the military. He was in his 50s and went back to school and decided that this was what he wanted to do, and he became a child life specialist. I honestly have, I don't know, I really like second career applicants. I think the life experience that you have is really important too. And bringing a different perspective from another field can be very beneficial too. So I think you can be very successful as a second career applicant and find great success and meaning and purpose in our field too.
Awesome. I think on that note, are there any cute, inspiring anecdotal stories you could share with us to close us out?
Oh man, so many stories. So, gosh, I guess I just want to leave you with just encouragement that it may be hard. It is hard. We recognize that. It is so important, the work we do, the impact that we make in kids' lives, and it's worth it. It may not feel like it sometimes as you may be applying multiple times or trying to figure out how does this work. But as a leader of this team and someone who's been in the field for a long time, there's no other job like it. I get paid to play and I love it. And I will own that, and I will, I'll wear it as a banner because it matters so much. And, there's going to be people that question that and say, I wish I got paid to play, or it must be nice to just blow bubbles all day. But we know what we're actually doing. And that is something that I will say you have to be able to have a thick skin to, or find your own intrinsic value and understanding of it, because a lot of people struggle with that in the field, not feeling as valued or as important as others. And we can't make people value us, but we can show them the value of our work. So never stop trying, never stop playing. Kids need to be kids, and kids should not be scared as they come into the healthcare experience, and we can help with that. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Debbie. You guys, I will share with you this presentation. This was an amazing presentation with a lot of great information. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to email me, and then I can circle back with Debbie. Thank you so much, Debbie, for your time today. And it was such a pleasure to have you speak to our students today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I wish you all the best in your journeys, and maybe you'll be applying to our program someday. So good luck with everything and have a great rest of your day.
Bye.